Okay, getting into now some portion of McKenzie method here. McKenzie method is not just extensions. They'll use extension quite a bit because you actually end up getting a pretty good response on the gross majority of your patients with extension bias in the spine. Now we're using this here to try and what we call centralize pain. So let's say the patient has sciatica, so pain all the way down the glute and back of the hamstring and the calf. We'll use positions to try and move the pain up towards the lumbar spine, away out of the leg. That's called centralization. We're bringing it back to center. And so that's why it's called directional preference, because we're finding the direction of putting your loading your spine or putting your spine in position, the direction. It's preference to centralize the pain. So that's directional preference. Don't get hung on that, excuse me. Now, you're not going to bang somebody into full extension right off the bat. Maybe. Sometimes you have to ease your way into it. And so I'm going to walk you through a little progression here. And all we do is we start out with two flat hands and forehead on those hands, just like we do alligator respiration here. And then what I do is I wedge down. It's what you'll notice is it's just a gradual loading of extension here. Then I'll move the hands down to the chin, and that actually puts me in a little bit more lumbar spine extension. You actually be surprised at some individuals where might feel almost unbearable. And now your question to those individuals, okay, it feels almost unbearable, but where? And if they say the lumbar spine, if they say the low back, then perfect. Even if they have a 1 out of 10 leg pain and their back pain now in these positions are 10 out of 10, I would actually rather that 10 out of 10 back pain than that 1 out of 10 leg pain, because any leg pain, now we're talking about nerve root as opposed to just lumbar spine here. So we're not playing with neurological structures when we start talking about lumbar spine referral pattern. The nerve root is what I want to pull away from. So from here, I'll make one fist. And so now I'm actually like this, and you can see with the elbow. So I'm stacked here, and then I'll stack 2 fists on the chin there, put me a little bit more extension. And then from here, what I'll do is I'll just wedge my elbows underneath a little bit here, and then I'll press up. So this actually, you might not be going this fast with patients. You might spend a little bit time on one fist here, and then maybe 2 fists, and then come back down to give them a break, and then come back up into it. It really depends on how the patient's reacting, and hopefully you'll have an opportunity to watch me walk a patient through this eventually, because how you're constantly talking to the patient, letting them know you know exactly what's going on, you know exactly where you're communicating. You feel this, you feel it here, and so it's constant communication. So they feel comfortable with you doing this. And then we get into even more extension, and then we could come here and to start going to press up. Now, when we go into press up, ideally the pelvis stays on the floor, or on the ground. So ideally the belt buckle stays on the ground. Mine won't, because I'm fused at L4, L5, S1. So when I start to do this press ups, you're gonna be like, holy moly, his whole body's coming up. I want you to imagine the pelvis stays on the ground. I don't get the extension there because I'm literally fused. Screws. Okay. Press up. And then I can start wedging the hands under even more, getting a full range press up there. Again, the pelvis is usually on the ground. A really common mistake is to squeeze the glutes at the top. We don't want that. Another common mistake is to have the chin or cervical spine extended on the fist like that. No, I want the top of the chin on it, so I'm there. Okay. The tissue that we're working on here is the disc, the lumbar spine disc. And squeezing the glutes at the top, that's a faulty pattern there. Okay. Okay. Again, recap here. There's no true biomechanics behind this. It's more so of a progressive loading into passive extension. We're putting the patient into passive extension. The tissue here, the goal is to hopefully centralize any ridiculous radicular symptoms, which means the tissue that we're trying to affect is the lumbar spine disc. From a coaching standpoint, there's no real coaching. If anything, maybe keep the belt buckle on the ground, but it's more so of just a reassurance throughout the entire movements that you're communicating where their pain is. Again, common fault when you're in hands, cervical spine will be an extension. Sometimes they press up, they're squeezing the glutes. So just trying to have them stay relaxed as possible. And your sets reps really depend here. It really depends on the response. So if somebody's pretty acute, they come into your office with raging sciatica, and you put them in these postures and positions, and they feel absolutely the zero leg pain as they're doing it. When they stand up, you might have the person do this. You might have them do 30 repetitions every hour that they're awake. So every waking hour. Okay. But it really depends. You might have them do 10 reps. You might throw in there like, hey, every waking hour, I want you to do 30 press ups. And if you feel like between sets or between waking hours, if you feel any sciatica, you could go ahead and get in that Sphinx position, maybe when they're just on their when they're propped up on their elbows like this. So you spend a little time in this position as well. So there's no true rep sets. It really depends on the patient. But the thing is, you're going to try and pull the patients off of this as fast as possible. So once you get that pain centralized into the lumbar spine, you'll start doing much more dynamic activities, because if you continuously put people into extension, guess what you're going to create? You'll create extension sensitivity. So there you go.